Hey everyone, it's Bookshore, and today we're going to talk about Night Souls by Joseph McElroy, my ninth book by him. It's a short story collection, and it's a decent place to start if you're into McElroy. It's a bit difficult. I find I enjoy McElroy a bit more when I have 10 to 40 pages to really get into it, and then I can get a good grasp of what's going on. This one, it's so easy to miss so many stuff, but it is enjoyable, and if you want to read Women and Men, this is a great primer to that because a lot of the stories really feel within the style of that Woman and Men Lookout Cartons Plus era. This is my first short story collection, so I'm just gonna go through each story individually. I might miss a little thing here or two, the theme of plot. So bear with me. It's 12 stories. I don't want to do like a 2-hour long video, and I'm gonna be real with you. There are stories within here that I'm gonna have to reread in the future. So the first story in this collection is No Man's Land, and it is like almost a reverse cannonball in the sense that it's from the viewpoint of an Arab immigrant coming to America during like the 2000 Afghanistan's war, and how his family adjusts to life in America. And I kind of wish this was a full-length novel, because I loved Cannonball. It just represented my time period in, Southern California so well. And to see that from the opposite perspective, and the opposite and real perspective of, the racism addressed to these to people who came trying to escape this country. He doesn't specify which country they come from, but these refugees coming in here and still being seen as having terrorist ties to these organizations and whatnot, and the racism that they receive that's really undue to them and they themselves are victims, and just how it comes from either big or small, from all different members of the population throughout, like his teacher, or how his brother gets shot by a police officer at the end. And it's just, McElroy just has such an ear for that, and it just feels like a modern writer, like somebody of my age or a bit older writing about it at that time period as well. And this one, it's a great short story. I wish it was a full-length novel, and it kind of does that cannonball where it starts doing fragmented passages near the end as well. The next one, the man with the bag full of boomerangs, bro. This is the most like I don't get the point of this McElroy novel. It's about a dude walking around, seeing a guy throw boomerangs, and thinks about it, comes back again, sees him again. I have to reread this one. I really don't know what McElroy was getting at with this one, and to be honest, it didn't really hold my interest. Mr. X, I think this is important McElroy reading because it really cements together when he's getting like the architect and the human experience as well. Because it's about a city planner who's getting acupuncture, and there's so much overlay between the acupuncture points on the person and the city as well, and how just as important as these chi centers on the body, it is important to the flow of the city as well, and how he has to designate where key centers of the city are going to be built at. And that overlapping of like everything, the systems of the world that help provide us to the human body, to the spiritual experience as well with the chi, or you can even say the New Age experience, which I feel is a bit more appropriate because McElroy does delve into the New Age a bit. Just all intersecting in each other, and it's just beautiful metaphor, and it just makes a lot of other things in McElroy make sense when he's talking about architectures, when he's talking about systems that are larger than us, and how it so much relates to the body. It's like what Roman says that the location where a person is born and like the environment and whatnot does so much to influence their thought process. Character is a cool one too. I enjoyed character from a personal level. It's about a kid working on a wooden boat and just like scragging away at it, and just everything that kind of happens in the background, and all the family stuff that in some ways has more pertinence and importance on his life, but he's so on the singular focus of the wooden boat that he misses a lot of it, and he only gets like sparse details. And somebody who practiced a lot in the woodshed, because musicians used to practice in the woodshed, it was a great example because sometimes you're just so focused on that, and that you kind of just get glints and hymns of stuff here and there. But I also love the aspects of gender that goes on it as well. Like seeing his crush's father come over, the implied affair that McElroy always likes to tease at, and just the differences between her parents and his parents, and the involvement in between both, and but still that being overshadowed by his technical craft, and I really like that one. It's really beautiful and it kind of meant a lot to me. So canoe repair is another kind of strange McElroy one where there's a subplot of a machine in it. It should be the main plot in other books, but it's just kind of in the background for these characters, and you don't really get a great sense of why they're traveling or when they're traveling through time and what from what future, from what other time period, and so much of the book focuses on canoe repair, the dynamics of the canoe and building it and sailing with it and everything. But I think what this one kind of shows with McElroy is how he's from a bit of an older generation. He has a proclivity like he did in Women and Men, and it's not the best depiction of in modern sense anymore, but of showing of black bodies, and he seems to have a focus on them, almost to an erotic sense that like Delaney parodied in Dahlgren in a sense, but not like so hypersexual, but just kind of like that fascination, the constant commenting on the black bodies and just seeing how look at this man with this white woman row this canoe and how fascinating he is in that sense. But again, McElroy is a bit older, and there's been much worse depictions I've noticed. Also, there's not really many black characters in McElroy, so we're only that one in Woman and Men who was also disabled. But the next one is Campaign Trail. Campaign Trail, I had to read it a few times. It's a strange one where it's like this pseudo Hunger Game-ish thing where like the politicians go in to like a forest to meet up and talk about, and they're being watched from a satellite. Very strange, very kind of talking about, I think he's trying to get at like the performative nature of politics and the ridiculousness of it in a lot of senses, and how much of it is so much based on because it's about the assistant. Actually, I think the main person is black in this one too, but the assistant focusing on so much logistics and the optics and how they will look within the campaign, rather than so much focus on the actual policy itself. The last Disarmor #1. Now this was, I had to read this a bit, and this is almost derivative, beginning or subsequent rewriting of one of the best chapters in Women and Men about a matter-destroying bomb. It's exactly that. It's about a bomb that destroys an entire nation and leaves a crater, and the after effects it leaves on the population there and that. Well, they start developing like self-reproduction, starting into a enlightened state. There's a satellite that has the features of both women and men, and it's the organs all encapsulated in there, and it's a crazy, awesome sci-fi story. It's more detailed than the one in Women and Men, and it's one of the better stories in there, and it's fun also in Women and Men. It's just that I just can't decide if I want this version or the other one in the main novel, because this version is a lot more detailed and has a lot more sci-fi stuff in it. However, it has a lot of contradictions through this novel of Women and Men too. So it's a tough one, and I wish the crux of the Women and Men was focused more on something like this. When McElroy was able to delve into the sci-fi and really puts it in the foreground, he succeeds. He's great at it. I wish I would see that a little bit more out of him. I get what his intention is in focusing on the mundane and putting it more in the background, but he's just so damn good at it. Annals of Plagiarism is a great novel about the nature of intertextuality, where this guy writes something and then he hears somebody copy it directly on live TV, and he may have got it from another place as well, and just the fluctuation of thought and how it just transfers to each individual. It's almost like the Guthrie Govan quote, where if you take from one person, you're stealing. If you take from many people, it's inspiration. However, what he's kind of trying to get at here is that we steal all the time. We steal ideas constantly. It happens in academia, it happens in the real world. Just look what's going on with TikTok with the black stripe right now. But it just really, he does a great microscope and really showing this idea. And also, a kind of a cool thing too is that at the end of the book, the character's wife says you're always like thinking about water, stuff like that, because it goes into dissertation about water. It just McElroy inserting himself into the own story in a lot of ways because he's writing a book on water and he's been doing it for several decades, I believe. If that comes out next year, I'm screwed. So, the woman in the silk bike, or the silk something, who cares, is about a dude reminiscing about meeting a woman and trying to give a bike to her, and about his days in laboratory making silk and everything. And what I think it's trying to reflect on is the little moments that we kind of miss out on human interactions, or the off chance things that happen just in the day-to-day lives. Like, for example, she meets her in a subway and they just start striking up a conversation, and if I remember correctly, go on a date as well and whatnot, and have talk about bikes and have these, and it's such a chance encounter. And I think we've all kind of felt that, like, oh, what if I meet somebody cool on the bus, or what if I, meet somebody that might be interested in a date over here or something like that. Those chance encounters in everyday life that we really don't have a time to focus on it too much anymore. There's no real cultural center in any cities anymore, and we're just so concerned with going to work, and that's shown through the thought process of him focusing on the spider and that web. And I think that web also may be the metaphor of interconnectivity between the two aspects as well. The Unknown Kid, I like this story a lot. It was another story that was cut from Wham, and it really should have been left in, because I feel like it highlights the gender issues in a great way. It's about a father looking after his kids and thinking about them, and the wife coming home, and you realize that she's the breadwinner, and there's a little bit of an undertone of, does she still respect him? And it's like, hey, am I still does she still attracted to me? Does she like me being a home husband? Does she still respect me in the same way? And it's very subtle, but I like that because, there's nothing wrong with being an at-home husband. If anything, more, the culture needs to change to accommodate that as well. However, there's still that aspect where it is not very accepted in our society, and just seeing that actuation and the love this man has for his child, but that undertone of not knowing in just such a subtle way, and the slight anxiety that causes as well, is very beautiful. The particle story, I just forgot it. Who cares? This mantling particle or something. This is a little problem with McElroy sometimes, and I appreciate the aspects of fatherhood and the rumination on kids, but this one, it didn't grab. It was nice, but it was just kind of getting tough to differentiate after, especially being this deep in all his books. But it's another thing where he's watching his kids, and he's comparing string theory or something like quantum theory with music and everything. Funny thing, even though I like that interplay, McElroy gets a lot of music theory wrong here. He says like a flat 7/9, which is like, wait, you flat both the 7 and the 9? You put that as separately? Or running octaves? Octaves is just the next displacement up from the scale. So if you're just running octaves, it's not very interesting sound. There's only like a few occasions where I know an octave sounds good, but you don't run octaves, you run scales. So it's funny to see that McElroy, how intelligent he is. It's like, your music, it's lacking and nobody cares. But let's get to one of my favorite stories too, is Night Soul, what it's based off of. And this book, it's almost like reintroducing a primal feeling back into modern urban life, where it's about a man waking up and hearing his kid make these oohs and ahs, and just the thought of developing language, the communication he's trying to make, and him feeling a bit equal with his kid in that moment, even though he shouldn't. And him reminiscing and ruminating on the animals that like tear down the screen door a little, create a little hole, and the dangers that might be out there for the kid as well. And just the anxiety of the father having to take care of this small, precious, delicate child, which, you know, I'm not a father in any way, but that is scary. I thought, like, I have this little meat sack that I have to protect for numbers of years before it can even defend itself. And, you know, just his wife recognizing it and, you know, asking about it. And, you know, he's not really sure even what he's recognizing as well. It's just almost like, hey, what is this continuation of life? What is this other being that is trying so hard to communicate right now but can't? What is his thinking? What is his thought process? What is his fear? Am I being an intruder in itself? How is it viewing me? And out of all the father-son or stories, I think this is probably the best one. And it's a nice little short ending to it as well. And it's just a beautiful, short story to end the collection. And as Michael Silverblatt would say, "You're the man, Joe." But yeah, that's Night Souls. I liked it. My copy ended up being signed, dedicated to 2 people also, which is kind of funny because I got it for a normal price. I like Night Souls. It's a decent starting place if you want. I think McElroy works a lot better in the long format where he has space to breathe, but he did a great job in these stories as well. They're intensive. I'm gonna have to definitely read some of them. I didn't feel like I got everything I needed to out of there. I would say maybe the only problem, and you know, this is just something I'm running into for the marathon, a lot of them just can kind of feel like it's covering the same themes and topics again, but there is a decent amount of diversity in these stories as well. So I would definitely recommend checking it out. It's one of the more accessible, well, it was last year, but now I guess it bumped up to $80. But I think it's going back down to 15. So if you can get your hands on it, I definitely recommend it. So that's 1 or 2 more in the McElroy Marathon, and